Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of FPC Radio Live. It is NFL Draft Week. That's right, Monday, April 25th. I almost said October for some reason, but it is April 25th. That means the draft kicks off this Thursday, and it's about damn time. Let's just put it that way. I'm kind of getting sick of all the build up towards it. I just want to get to the event and get it over with. So it's going to be a pretty exciting week here on FPC Radio Live, and of course at over at fullpresscoverage.com, where we have several, actually six official FPC mock drafts out. We will be sharing them from the at Full Press NFL Twitter account later today. So if you missed any of them, if you want to go back in time before several of these trades happened and look at what we were thinking, then you can check it out. Then, of course, we're going to be having a bunch of live coverage on Thursday as well. But, John, before we get to that, the Boston Celtics are up 3-0 on the Brooklyn Nets. And I'll tell you what, I know the games have ended close, but correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the Celtics have essentially dominated the series for much of these last 3 games. In like the final minute and a half, yeah, that game should have probably been a blowout. Hmm. Yeah, we've seen it from both teams. He looked good too when he was out there. He looked he it's funny, you see him out on the court after missing him these last few games, or last month or so, and you realize just how much bigger he is. If there's one thing that the Celtics were lacking, was kind of that big presence, right in the middle, and it's like it seems like they have it now. And look, I mean, we talked about this after game one, and I said this to you. I can't remember if it was on or off the air, but in the past, the Celtics lose game one. That's a game where they get up big and then they blow the lead, and that's something they cannot overcome. And the reason that they were able to do that has been the common denominator in these 3 games. The Celtics are unflappable, at least against Brooklyn. Every single time Brooklyn made a run, it did not matter. And in years past, we've seen this. Celtics fans who have watched this team, particularly this version, with the Jays, Tatum and Brown, and kind of this version of the Celtics, post Big Three. Um, they you could consider them mentally weak at times. And certainly when you blow a double digit lead like they did in game one, that's a cause for concern, because then you start to see them pressing. Then you start to see them make mistakes down the stretch, and then eventually the game ends, and you end up losing in 5 games to the Nets like you did last year. This year it's different. You've seen them blow leads, you've seen them hold leads, you've seen Brooklyn, make their best attempt to come back, and the Celtics are just like, no, we're good. We'll let you get close, but as soon as you get close, we're just going to take it over again. Like, how many times did they get within 3, and then you blink and it was 7, 8 point lead again for the Celtics? And look, Jason Tatum didn't even have a great efficient night shooting, but timing, yeah, the timing of how well he shoots, and to your point, what he's doing outside of shooting, the passing, the defense. I mean, everything. It's again, it makes you forget that. I mean, good God, if he actually gets to the point where like I mean, game four might be a game where maybe he is on, and that might not be even a close contest for the Nets. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and look, I mean, sometimes it's not even necessarily Tatum's fault, like you said. I mean, there's just other guys ahead of him. It's my mentality when it comes to quarterbacks. It's like, yeah, I mean, in the NFL, yeah, you could have a great season, but unless that guy at the top has a bad season, I'm not going to elevate you over it. So that's kind of the same thing. But yeah, anyone who watches Jason Tatum play, obviously not only sees a lot of Kobe Bryant, and for obvious reasons. I mean, just some of the style in which he plays and everything. Obviously, the big Kobe fan growing up and all that stuff. So that's not surprising. What's surprising is he's starting to play with the efficiency and the ability to that level. Not quite. I mean, again, we're not sitting there telling you he's the greatest basketball player, but when you watch a kid this young evolve over the course of the last few seasons, and then of course now see a team that I know. Yeah, I saw someone tweet this, and again, this if it wasn't for that LeBron James narrative that's been floating around here, it may be the second, no, the worst narrative that's being pushed. It's that no one wanted to play Brooklyn, and I'm sitting here thinking like, no, the one team that wanted to play Brooklyn played Brooklyn and is currently up 3 games to none, and that's when you look at the Celtics team and the growth. It'd be tough to say that the growth that they're going through right now, just in these last few weeks, are more than what we've seen over the last 4 seasons. Hmm. He's evolved his game. Hmm. And no pun intended. He's a very smart basketball player. Even when again some of his sometimes you can be a little bit too smart for your own good, and yeah. Yeah, there you go. Well, and if you think about it, that was kind of, Marcus's problem. It's like, we go back to game 1 and it's like 100 times out of 100 he takes that shot. And then he didn't. And then all of a sudden you're like, "Wow, he made a very," and this was a very thought, you listen to him talk about it after the game. Very well thought out. I mean, originally I think he said he was looking for Horford. And then he saw Tatum cutting, and look, I mean, that's what you want to see, and that's what all of a sudden, like, like I said, I mentioned that narrative earlier that, oh, LeBron beat the state. This is not the same 2000. I know there's similarities with Smart, Brown, Tatum, and Horford, but this is not that 2018 season. I think every one of those players are better, except save for maybe Al Horford, only because he's gotten older. But you'd be hard pressed to tell me that he isn't a perfect player to come off the bench and give you some quality minutes. Not only that, but make some really big plays both offensively and defensively. Hmm. Yeah. All of a sudden they're and that's the thing. It's like this has been what we're talking 40 games now of just high level elite basketball that just doesn't seem like it's going to waver. Like I said, I mean, I know these games are close, and some people are arguing that, oh, the Nets weren't in this. I mean, they look. I'm not even like I've never sat here and pretended like I'm some basketball expert, but even a casual fan, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean it as someone who doesn't pay attention every single day of the season. Um, I mean, I've never like Steve Nash is getting I mean, it looks like he's going up against a D League defender in his prime right now, but he's the D League defender. I mean, I don't know what his role is coaching or what he does. I know it's difficult. I know you're probably dealing with a lot of ego when it comes to Durant and of course Kyrie, but he's been out coached at every level. And look, you mentioned it. I think we talked about it maybe off the air, but one of the things Ime is doing better is the timeouts that he's taking. I mean, they've been far better timed. I mean, like we saw, what was it? Brooklyn went on a run on Saturday where they hit a couple shots, and in the past, Ime would just literally let it sit, and it's frustrating because it's like, all right, you got to do something. You got to calm these guys down. Boom, timeout, completely killed that run for Brooklyn, and the timing was great, and obviously, you can't you can't praise the Celtics defense without giving credit to the coach because again you got to put the system in place for them to run it, and they're running it to a such a high level that it's impressive. Oh yeah, oh sure, yeah, exactly. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, well Denver managed to win a game yesterday, so they're only down 3-1 only. But yeah, yeah, but well, again, John, that's kind of like what was it? Toronto went out of their way to avoid Brooklyn. I mean, teams lost on purpose to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Milwaukee. I was thinking Blue Jays for some reason because the Red Sox are heading up to Toronto. Yeah, Milwaukee, and it's like, look, no one's going to sit here and pretend like Milwaukee's a pretender. No, I mean, I think everyone believes that Milwaukee is certainly a very easy candidate for to win the championship. But just that alone kind of speaks to and that's what I'm saying about the Celtics team. It's different. Not we're not they're different from everyone else. No, this is different from previous Celtics teams because I'm not saying they would have shied away from it, but they wouldn't have welcomed the competition and then come out and have their play match that confidence. Like that's the thing. Their confidence in being able to beat Brooklyn has been matched by their play on the court. And not all that's not always the case. Trust me, a lot of people come in plenty confident and don't back it up. The Celtics have been doing that. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Well, and let's just say too, this team is talented. Like in the past, like we've talked about them overachieving, and sometimes you're like, yeah, they're playing great right now, but eventually they're going to hit a wall. No, this team is not only obviously playing great basketball, but it's relative and it's appropriate to the level of talent that they have on this team. So it isn't a matter of over the Nets are just playing bad. Like they're forcing the Nets to play poorly. Kevin Durant, yeah, he struggled, but a lot of that is because of the Celtics. I mean, he hit a couple nice shots early on last night, but then what did they do? They made sure he didn't have a damn inch to move. And guess what? Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you watch this team, you like the defense, you like the effort, and you look for the little things that in years past would have maybe been a sign of disaster, and that, like I said, is blowing those leads and maybe being overachieving. That's fine. That's fine for a young team. I mean, if you overachieve, that kind of just gives you a little bit early taste of what could be some success, and maybe those Eastern Conference again. Part of it was the nature of the conference. I mean, let's not forget what the conference was 4 or 5 years ago. It was basically Cleveland and a bunch of what 6, 7, 8 seeds vying for two through 15. Yeah. Well, I'm speaking. I'm more so. You know, I'd say his second run in Cleveland, especially towards the end, where like even Milwaukee wasn't Milwaukee. Giannis wasn't Giannis. Uh, Philly was. I think they were in the process, so they were right in the mix for a top six. So there really wasn't that team outside of Cleveland. So yeah, it opened the door for a Celtics team to overachieve, and that's fine. But this time, if they make it to the conference finals, they deserve to be there. Not that they didn't before, but you know what I mean. Like their talent and their ability match where they're reaching at this point, and I think that's yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, easily. Well, you saw the that play. Kevin Durant. Obviously, there's a miscommunication there on the base or right on the 3 point line there in the corner, and he just gave the ball away. And you saw Kai, and those are the things. It's like, okay, this is what happens when you have two egos. One of which is very thin skinned. The other one is, I mean, I don't know with Kyrie what he is. Yeah. So like that's not going to be good. Then all of a sudden that's why you get these, you know, not so subtle shots at coaching and everything now that they know that the writing's on the wall. So um Oh, yeah, and fortunately, I like it when no matter what, those teams like that may not necessarily work out. You know what's funny, John? And I know there's everything about big threes. More often than not, they don't work. Like think about it. Like for the last 15 years, let's go back to 2007 when this idea of putting together this big three. I mean, it really took off when the Celtics made the trades to bring in Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. That's when Big Three really came back into the basketball, just a lexicon, I guess you want to call it. It really hasn't worked as. I mean, look, the Celtics won in their first year, and they're the only team that's done that. I mean, if you want to say, well, Golden State, well, again, Golden State had already won. Brought in Kevin, it was a little bit different. I'm talking about a team acquiring talent and then turning it around right away. Well, you could say, oh, well, Cleveland did it the second time. Well, they didn't win in the first year. Same with Miami. It took a little bit of time to come together. And even then, it's like, okay, Cleveland, you won once. The Lakers right now, yeah, they won the championship, and you're never gonna take that away. But big picture, it certainly wasn't as successful so far as the seasons in which the Celtics were. You know what I mean? So this idea that you need a big three, yes, it helps, but how often have we seen it fail? I think we've seen, yeah. Oh yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't really. uh, Yeah, when people say big three, and there's no real true definition of how it should be done. This is just how I personally view it. It's not like if you have, it's like the Golden State Warriors, for example. I mean, they that was talent. Like people saying, oh, Kevin Durant went to a stacked team, well, or whatever they were called. It's like, well, it's different. I mean, they were drafted. I mean, they were drafted and developed. Like I don't call that like a big three to me. I'd say, let's put it this way: the current definition of a big three to me is three overpriced veteran players that have a bunch of success, but very little playoff success to go along with it. Because that's essentially what what's you have the obviously LeBron, grouping with whatever, but Anthony Davis, a lot of success, very little playoff success. Well, what happened with Kevin Durant? Same thing. A lot of success, very little playoff success. Well, they got a big three. Well, this, that, I don't know. It's just big three. It's like, okay, that's great. It's good to have, and I'm sure you love it. But we're seeing more and more, especially from smart teams, that you need depth. You need depth. I don't care how many you could have three great players, but if you don't have a Peyton Pritchard who comes in and just gives all of us short white guys hope that maybe one day that we'll be able to do what he does. Yeah, you're not going to win consistently in the NBA, and certainly not in the playoffs, because it's a different animal. You got to win a series, not just a game. So, uh, yeah, Ben Sim. Oh wait, yeah. Oh, easily, easily, easily. I like I for 3 games of the series, every time I saw him for the first time, I was like, I can't believe I forgot Great Blake Griffin was on this team. And this was after the night, before I'd said that before. So, no, I like it's you need the depth, you need the scoring, you need all that stuff. But we're looking at it right now. We're seeing a Celtics team that's healthy, especially now with Rob Williams. You have, I mean, Ben Simmons. Look, I don't want to. I mean, I don't know how hurt he is, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know some people are basically just accusing him of. I'm not going to do that when you're talking about especially herniated discs in your back. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the guy's not hurt, but it's just not a good look. I mean, and don't get me wrong, my thing I hope that never dies is people photoshopping Ben Simmons in random locations throughout history in that outfit, because that to me was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And look, I'm not saying Ben Simmons deserves to absolutely skirt criticism. He deserves it. I mean, let's be honest here. Like the guy to me, if I'm a Nets fan, if I'm a Nets player, do you have any confidence or any whatever in Ben Simmons at all? Yeah, well, that's exactly. Well, yeah. But we said, look, and have the alternative being James Harden. I don't think was much better, because we even said beforehand, it's like good luck before the season. I mean, we don't talk a lot of basketball, but I do remember sitting here thinking like, yeah, good luck with that. Nice, cool, big three, but you have three of the biggest absolute egos in the NBA, and you're trying to get them to mesh, and there you go. There's another example. The big three just failed miserably. It didn't even take a season. So I don't know. Ray Allen. Hmm. 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 Yeah, and I like that it's working. So, all right, we're gonna have to say goodbye for the day. We'll be back throughout the week. Obviously, we got a whole bunch of NFL draft stuff to talk about, and of course, more of these NBA playoff series are going to be concluding here with the Celtics having a chance to wrap it up, and of course, Golden State on the verge of moving on as well in the West. And then we have a couple other closer series, but I'm sure we're going to get a little bit more insight to that tonight and tomorrow. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Full Press NFL, at FP underscores coverage, and of course, Full Press Radio. Thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.